Hey everyone, Robert Ferringo of Doc Sports, back with your weekly look ahead. I say back with it. This is actually episode 1. Okay. The idea behind this show is that you got to have a plan, right? In sports betting and really in anything in life, it's good to have a plan. And to make good decisions tomorrow, you got to plan ahead, right? Like you got to look at the way things are going to develop. In sports betting and in all sports, for instance, what happened last week is going to influence the numbers for next week. The losses that we took or the wins that we gained last weekend are going to influence how we bet and who we bet on next weekend, right? So this show, which I'm going to start to do on a weekly basis on Monday, is basically just kind of broad strokes, kind of look ahead across a wide spectrum of sports. Some weeks we might focus on one sport. Other weeks, we may talk about a few different sports and just kind of throw out some things that we are looking ahead to as sports professionals. I say we, I may have some guests on from time to time. Those of you who aren't super familiar with me, you can find more information at docsports.com. I've been a professional handicapper for almost 20 years, so this is my business. And I can tell you when I'm running well, it's because I have a good structure. I have a good framework of what I'm going to be doing over the next 2 or 3 weeks. What you don't want to be doing as a gambler is waking up every day and looking at the board and being like, okay, who's playing and what are the numbers? All right, you are already behind the sports books if that is your approach. All right, got to look ahead. Look ahead to this week's football, but also next week's football. So you can be like, all right, I think this team is going to do this weekend. If they don't, how is that going to influence the following week's number or the following week's results? All right. So that's a little bit of what we're going to try and do here. Okay. So I'm mainly going to talk about college hoops. That's kind of the headline story. I'll get to that in a minute. A few quick hit things that I want to talk about that we are looking ahead to. Number one is the release of the college football rankings on Tuesday. Now, I don't care about this stuff. I've never cared about the national championship of college football. I think college football is a joke. I always have thought of it as a joke in just regular sports fandom realm, right? Not as a betting vehicle. But this is a big deal to a lot of people. It's going to get a lot of mainstream love. A lot of people are going to be up in arms on social media about it, all that. This is important to gamblers, though. Okay, because that noise is actually going to have ramifications on numbers and performance. It's going to have an impact on the numbers because those teams that are in those top 12 spots are going to get inflated a little bit more, okay, than they normally are because we already have top 25. We've had the top 25 forever. Well, now we have playoff rankings. That's going to add a few points to some numbers for some of those teams. For those teams that are in must-win situations or this team has to win to get into the playoffs or those teams in that 13, 14, 15, 16 range, we're going to see the same thing. You're going to start paying a little bit of a tax on those teams because of the attention and the hype from the media on them. Also, that's going to provide motivation to some teams. If you're a team that thinks you should be in the top 10, thinks you should be in the top 12s, thinks that you should be, even if you think you should be in the top 4, but you come in at number 6 or number 8, okay? Coaches, players, fan bases, they use those things as motivation. It's very real, especially when we're talking about 19, 20, 20-year-old kids that will take motivation anywhere they can get it. It's going to influence how hard these teams play and what they do moving forward. Not only that, but you're going to have teams, big underdogs later in this season whose seasons didn't go the way they wanted to, have a losing record, aren't going bowling, another lost year, but maybe they have a chance in their final home game or in one of their last games of the season, of the regular season, to play a part in who goes to the playoffs. Pull that upset. You see this in the NFL. Every year in week 17, now week 18, you have teams that have been long since left for dead, are facing a team that is trying to play its way into a wild card situation. And that team that's, 3-12 4-11, 4-12 now because they have the 17 games, that has had nothing to play for them but mailing it in for 2 months, all of a sudden treats this game like the Super Bowl because it's the end of the season and they get to play spoiler. So those rankings are going to be released on Tuesday. Let's see what they do to the numbers. Look at the spreads for this week's college football beforehand. Look at afterwards. Look at what everyone did to those numbers next week. I do that Robert Ferringo's weekly recap show also. This is one of the things you can expect me to kind of look at or at least touch in on moving forward. Right? Okay. Number 2, Alabama LSU this Saturday, elimination game, kind of building off number 1. They both have 2 losses. They both are going to be on kind of the fringe of that college football ranking. Whoever loses that game is out. 3-loss team is not making it to the playoffs. So let's watch what that number does. Alabama's a favorite early in this week. Let's see what that number does. And that's just one to be mindful of the stakes in this game. And it's like, which coach, which quarterback, which team do you trust more in a situation like that? So we'll see how that plays out. Probably the most impactful game on the college football slate for next Saturday. All right, here's a random one for you. Inter Miami, Atlanta United. They are playing the MLS playoffs this Saturday. 3rd leg. It's like best of 3 in the first round in the MLS playoffs for those of you that aren't familiar, for the uninitiated. Miami won the first game. Atlanta United won the second game. And I was actually at that match on Saturday. And I can tell you that they didn't just win. They outplayed Inter Miami. I know all this. You're probably not into soccer, not following MLS. But what we had here with Inter Miami this year and with Messi, real quick, they had the best regular season of any team in MLS history. With Lionel Messi, this is one of the most hyped team ever. They could be facing elimination. They are facing elimination. They could get knocked out of the playoffs as the number 1 seed on Saturday if they lose to Atlanta United. An Atlanta United team that they won last Saturday beat Miami with a 94th minute goal just before they were going to penalty kicks. That is the 3rd time in the last 3 weeks that Atlanta United has won a game with their season on the line. They had to win at the end of the regular season to get into the playoffs. MLS does something kind of like the NBA where they had 2 teams that were playing a playoff game to see who made it to the playoffs as the 8th seed. Atlanta United won that. If they had lost on Saturday, they were done. What we have here is kind of like, do you remember when the Denver Nuggets take you into the Wayback Machine with the Dikembe Mutombo beat the Seattle Supersonics? That's how long ago it was, is that we're talking about the Supersonics. It was the first time in NBA history where a number 8 seed in the NBA playoffs had beaten a number 1 seed. Might have been, and that actually might have been the first time in professional sports. Maybe it's happened in hockey. It had happened in hockey before that. But I think it might have been the first time in professional North American sports where an 8 seed had beaten a 1 seed in the first round. That could happen here this Saturday. I cannot wait to see what the number is going to be on that game. Serious underdog value with Atlanta United and maybe with the goal line. All the pressure is on Miami here. And we've seen things like this happen before in sports. So that is a game that is very, very much going to be on my radar this week and this weekend. In the NFL, really, I'm not looking forward to anything. Right now, the NFL is a very bad product. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to jump on the soapbox right now, but NFL is struggling right now. It is brutal to watch and to bet right now. So, I mean, the Steelers-Washington game caught my eye. That will be interesting moving forward. Maybe not from a betting perspective, but from just a fan perspective. But right now, the NFL is like, it's at the bottom of my list right now in terms of things I'm looking forward to. In the NBA, a couple things to watch this week. And again, as I get going with this, I'll have a little bit more structure. Team A is playing, Monday. If this happens, they play Wednesday. If this happens, they play Saturday. But just 2 teams to watch and keep an eye on this week as the week goes on. Golden State Warriors, Orlando Magic. Both of them lost their star player to injury. Steph Curry's down with an ankle injury, and the Warriors have been doing what teams in the NBA have been doing for time immemorial when they lose a star player. They're playing out of their minds, winning games, covering spreads, doing work without Steph Curry. Is that going to continue this week? On the other side, we have Orlando. Paulo Banchero just went out, losing games without their star player. They are 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 games, and they lost their star player. Okay. You know what that says to me? Value. There is going to be value with this Magic team. Where is the bottom? And when does that pendulum start to swing back the other way where they start to become a very enticing underdog? I think it could be this week. They've lost their last 2 games by more than double digits. Again, 0-5 against the spread their last 5 games. They're 13-point underdogs on Monday at Oklahoma City. Let's see how they play in OKC. If they get blown out tonight, might not be the worst thing because that might set us up to cash some tickets on this team. Eventually, the sportsbooks are going to get out ahead of it, right? They're going to overinflate the numbers to make up for no Banchero. And that's when we're going to start cashing with the Magic. So let's keep an eye on that game tonight. But, all right, let's not bury the lead here, which is exactly what I did. The number one thing that I'm looking forward to this week is college basketball, the return of college basketball. College basketball has always been my favorite sport to bet. It's always been my favorite sport, period, really. But for my money, and it is my money, this is the best sport to make money betting on sports bet gambling, especially this time of year. This November, December, non-conference college basketball portion of the season, I think is the best time for sports gamblers to take advantage of the sports books. Okay. And a few simple reasons why. Number one, right now, college football, NFL, NBA, NHL, fringe sports like soccer with playoffs, English Premier League, UFC events, all these other things are going on. Much higher profile right now. Just ask yourself, who do you know that's been talking about college basketball over the last 2 weeks? Where have you seen that online, on television, podcasts, wherever, anywhere that's talking about sports and sports betting? Who's been talking about college basketball over the last 2 weeks, last month? Nobody, right? It is completely under the radar. This is a major, major sport. One of the biggest handles, sports betting handles for the sports books come from college basketball through the course of the season. And nobody's talking about it right now. Sports books and odds makers understand that. They know where the money is being spent and bet. So that is where their focus is. If no one is focusing on college basketball, the odds makers aren't focusing on college basketball, which means they're being a little lazy, which means you get some soft numbers, which means they're not minding the store here. That creates a high value situation. Okay. There's just too much action going on, and the odds makers and the sports books have to prioritize their focus. Hell, right now you have the election going on. I think the sports books aren't highly leveraged, some of them, with what's going to happen with this election. You think they're paying more attention to college basketball opening week than they are the election right now? No, absolutely not. Nobody's minding the store. It's wide open for us to go in and take advantage. Okay. Number two, not only is there too much action, there's just too many teams. There's over 360 Division I college basketball teams right now. Okay. That is way too much for anyone to follow, including the odds makers. I know and understand the formulas that they use to set their spreads ahead of time. Okay. They're real lazy about this stuff. So you can find soft numbers because they're just not keeping up with all this stuff. New coaches, injuries, who transferred where, how are these teams looking, who played well in the exhibition season, who went overseas during the summer. There's too much information for too many teams for the sports books to be sharp on all of them, compared to 32 teams in the NFL that everyone talks about 365 days out of the year. Okay. Where the nickel cornerbacks, playing time, like you had with Chicago, is front page news each week. There's too many teams for them to keep up with right now. So they don't know what's going on. So if you're doing your homework and you're digging in, there's a lot of value here. You can be out ahead of the books in this sport. Building on that, reason number three is there's too many games. What that makes it, there's over 100 lined games on Monday. Okay, like Friday and Saturday, full cards, 50, 60, 80, 100 lined games on some of these days. All those numbers aren't going to be sharp. The books have to be right on almost all of those numbers. You only have to find a few of them. You only have to find a couple weak spots, a couple soft lines, a couple bad line movements. to take advantage. So there's too much action going on right now for the sports books. There's too many teams and there's just too many games. They are at a vulnerable position of college basketball. Okay. The final thing is there's just too many variables, especially with the early season tournaments. All right. Think Maui Invitational, stuff like that, right? A lot of teams playing a lot of games in a small amount of time, quick turnover times. They just have hours in between some of these games to get these spreads up. And wild line movements based on early betting. Again, they got to be right all the time. We just have to find a few mistakes. Okay, so that's why this time of the year, and it's a very small window. We're talking 2 months here, even less than that, from now until about Christmas. That is the best time of year to bet on sports and to make money. Okay, and that's why I'm all in on college basketball over these next few weeks. While everybody else is talking college football, playoff rankings, who cares? Okay, well, everybody's talking about NFL trade deadline as if that's going to create some big shakeup, or what's going on with Joel Embiid or DeMar DeRozan and Drake. Everybody else talk about that. I'm focused on college basketball. All right, because it's like being in one of those Chuck E. Cheese. They have that machine where the kids can go into, and all of a sudden the tickets start spraying around and you just grab as many as you can. That's how I feel about non-conference college basketball. Okay. So that's where my focus is going to be. A couple of games that I am looking ahead to this week. North Carolina plays Kansas on Saturday. True road game for North Carolina. They are going into Allen Fieldhouse. They're going to Lawrence, and they are taking on Kansas. This will be the marquee matchup of the weekend and one of the biggest sporting events going on Friday night at 7:30. Early number, they haven't posted this yet, but this is where the number is going to be. It's going to be Kansas -4.5. That's where that number is going to open. I'll be surprised if money doesn't come Kansas's way and pop that up. Maybe to around 5.5, 6. I could see Kansas is that good at home. And people early in the year, they don't know about these two teams. Again, a lot of transfers for both. They're going to defer to Kansas just being at home. So that's a game to watch Friday. Saturday, 3 games. Auburn is at Houston. They are playing at the Toyota Center, so neutral field in Houston. It's going to be kind of a home game for the Cougars. 2 top 10, top 12 teams here. Some people have Houston they're ranked 4th. They got some number 1 votes. One of the best teams in the country, Final Four shortlist. Houston is legit. Auburn's going to be an underdog in this game. That's their role. That's when they play their best. Okay. Bruce Pearl and his team, they got a chaotic style, right? They're going to open as about a 5-point underdog in that game. Very interested to see how these 2 top tier teams match up. Also Saturday at 7:30, again, lost in the shuffle of the college football weekend. We have Arkansas with John Calipari. I bet there are some of you watching this that did not know that John Calipari is not at Kentucky. He is actually at Arkansas now. His Arkansas team is playing Baylor in Dallas on Saturday. Baylor is going to be a small favorite in that game. Now, let's talk about weekly look ahead, right? Baylor is playing Gonzaga opening night on Monday. They are 5.5, 6-point underdogs in that game. If Baylor beats Gonzaga Monday, this Arkansas spread, which is going to be -3, -3.5, will explode. It'll be 6.5-point favorites in that game. It'll double if they beat Gonzaga on Monday. What if they get blown out by Gonzaga? I think it'll hold that number probably around 3, but also create a little bit of a bounce back motivation. If they go to Gonzaga and lose by 20, it's a very good Baylor team, experience, veteran guards, excellent coaching. Create a bounce back situation for them where I don't see them losing to 2 top 20 teams the first week of the season. So Baylor is very much a team to watch. Also going back to that Auburn-Houston game. Auburn plays Vermont on Wednesday. Vermont, been to 3 straight NCAA tournaments. I think they have 4 other 5 starters are back. Really good mid-major team. Really good. heavy favorite to make it 4 straight NCAA tournament appearances. Is Auburn looking ahead to that Houston game? What are they going to do? They're going to be a double-digit favorite. They're going to be a huge favorite against Vermont on Wednesday. Vermont also plays at UAB, another NCAA tournament team, NCAA tournament caliber team for this year. What happens in that game? If Vermont gets run out of the gym and now all of a sudden Auburn goes from being like 11, 12-point favorite to 16-point favorite, something like that, is there some value because they're looking ahead to Houston because Vermont's undervalued. So Vermont is actually a really interesting team this first week of the season. What are they going to do on Monday at UAB? How's Auburn going to treat that game before they go to play Houston? See how these things scaffold on top of each other, how these dominoes, fall into one another. That's what we're talking about in this weekly look ahead. All right, final game that I'm excited about, Tennessee at Louisville. Louisville is a very interesting team to me. New head coach, Pat Kelsey, coming over from Charleston. A lot of new players, a lot of guys that can put the ball in the hole. Tennessee has been a consistent top 10 team the last few years. They will be favored on the road in that game. They will be favored at Louisville because of how bad Louisville has been the last few years. This is not the same caliber Cardinals team. These guys are going to be good this year. These guys are going to bounce back. But how much can they coalesce early in the season? So that's going to be a great game. So, all right, that's your weekly look at. Thanks for stopping by. Like I said, I'll be doing this every Monday, hopefully with a little bit more structure and focus. Maybe you like it, me being all over the place like this. But yeah, email me, Robert@DocSports, or leave comments below and let me know what you think. Your free play is for Monday. Take Michigan over Cleveland State in college basketball. Michigan, another one of those teams, new coach, a lot of new players. Think they're going to try and make a statement early on in what could be a down year for this Cleveland State team. That's it. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for your time. Carpe diem, and good luck.
Yay, good job.
Okay, thank you.